Nobody could understand why I was holding on to this relationship. And truthfully, it just didn't really make any sense. I mean, yeah, we had been together for 6 years and there were good times, especially in the beginning, and good memories, but there was a lot of crappy shit in there too. So if I couldn't do it myself and my friends weren't able to get me to do it, and family and everybody else in my life couldn't understand why I was holding on in the first place, how did I finally let go of my ex? You know, my ex and I hung in there way longer than we probably should have, and for me, the biggest issue in the whole relationship was when he cheated on me. And when he cheated on me, I think that was the beginning of the dominoes of the tumbling down of our whole relationship. It's pretty easy for me to talk about it now, but back then, it was the most devastating thing in my life. I was scared, I was confused, I didn't know what to do. I had never had this happen to me before, and it felt like there was nobody I could talk to about it, because I didn't want to ruin the relationship if I was going to decide to keep going forward. And ultimately, that's what we did anyway. I decided, you know what, as long as he commits to going to therapy, then I'm willing to continue with this relationship, because we had been living together, we had a few years together, and we had something going, and it just seemed like, why would we let this stop it? We wound up having a 6-year-long relationship, and this is part of why we hung on so long, way past when we probably should have. For one thing, I had a lot of hope in the therapy, and I didn't understand at the time that the therapist that we were seeing was not truly very helpful. It felt like we were getting somewhere because we were going every week or every other week, I don't remember, but it felt like, okay, we got somebody else helping us through this and guiding us and measuring our progress, and I don't know, I thought that was a good thing and that was helping to keep us together, and yet we still continued to have issues. But then there's the other stuff that people don't always talk about when it comes to relationships that makes it hard to leave, like living together, meaning I'd have to find another place to live, or he would have to find another place to live, or both. And financial stuff, we had mixed our finances. I became much more dependent on him for financial security, and so it became harder for me to decide to leave because I didn't know how I was going to pick myself up off the ground. And obviously I loved him because I wanted to keep trying to work things out. Did you see that face that I just made? I made that face because he continued to cheat on me and he continued to do bad things in the relationship. And even though I know for my part, I worked on things, it wasn't a good relationship, and yet I stayed with it. Maybe you can relate to that. For all of the reasons that I've listed so far, my ex kept trying to break up with me because of things that he saw wrong about me, that I wasn't giving him enough physical affection, basically. That's at least what I took away from it, and I kept trying to make it work out. And so every time he would go and turn around and say, let's end things, I would say, like, no, let's give it another chance. We've been together for so long and we've got some good things going. Let's focus on those and see how we can continue to go forward. And this is part of what made it so hard to let go in the first place, because I just kept having hope. I'm a very optimistic person, and I tend to believe that people can change because I know they can change. I've changed myself a lot in my life, and I wanted to believe that we could find a way to make it work out, because I believe anybody can make a relationship work out if they're committed to it. And I was committed to it, so I kept trying. I did the things that our therapist recommended to do. I changed my behaviors. He said he wanted physical affection. I tried to give him physical affection. The truth is, whenever I tried things, it wasn't enough for him, and it wasn't working. Well, eventually we left that therapist that wasn't so great for us, and I found us a new therapist, and I had a lot more hope for this one because her style of helping us was different. She was talking about different things. She was talking about a possible mental illness that could be involved for both of us. And it felt like finally we were getting on the right track. For my ex though, that was not how he felt, and he made that clear fairly soon after we started seeing her. You know, we started to onboard with her and get to know her, and then quickly after that he dropped the bomb that he wanted to break up again. For me, it felt like the rug was being yanked right out from under me, because here I was feeling like finally we have somebody who can help us with this, and he wanted to end it. Well, I was desperate. Have you ever been desperate? Maybe you can relate. Let me know down below in the comments, but I was super desperate and I was not letting go of this relationship no matter what. This is when I started to tell my friends about all the cheating and all the negative stuff that was going on in the relationship prior to this, because I didn't know what to do and I needed somebody else to talk to, and talking with the therapist was great, but she didn't really know me and she didn't know our situation. My friends were like, why are you even still in this relationship? This is crazy. Like, nothing makes sense here. And I had to try to convince them of why I was trying to stay in the relationship because they could not really get it. I had been asking our new therapist, like, what are the chances here of making this work? What's going to happen? And she was trying to console me and say, I think there's a good chance if we talk things through and you have conversations. She wasn't necessarily saying that it was going to work out and we were going to have a relationship, but she felt like progress could be made. And for me, I took that word progress and I ran with it and I said, okay, we're going to fix this. So every time we had a conversation, every time my ex brought something up that he wanted, I made sure that I gave it to him. So he wanted physical affection, I made sure that I touched him on the arm when he needed to. Which, strangely enough, when I gave him the things that he wanted, as I mentioned before, he didn't act like he actually wanted them. But I asked him in the sessions, what do you need? What do you want? How can I help you? And I put myself aside because I was not getting the things that I wanted in this relationship, and I wasn't getting them for a very long time, but I was so committed to making it work that I said, I'm going to put myself aside here. I'm going to figure this out, and we're going to make him feel comfortable that he can open up and we can figure this out with a therapist. I was desperate. Well, he had stopped coming home, and he would come home later and later. When he did come home, it was like on and off. He would come home after work, and then eventually just like stopped coming home altogether. And I had a suspicion, and I finally confirmed that he was dating somebody else. For a lot of people, I know that would be the end right there, but not for me. I was persistent. I was gonna figure this out. And in my head, I was like, okay, you know what? This is a rebound relationship. He's gonna get this out of his system. It's only gonna last a month or so, maybe a couple of months at the worst. And then he's going to realize he made a mistake getting into this relationship, and we were going to work things out because I'm going to stay here with the therapy and we're going to figure it out. That was my mentality. Optimistic me, we're going to figure this out. I will not let go of this relationship. I knew that if somehow this was going to work, I was going to have to prove to him that I was committed and that I was changing. So for a long time with the old therapist, it felt like they were both blaming me for the problems in the relationship, which I knew couldn't be true. I knew it had to be both of us and the dynamics between us. And I resisted a lot of it. But in this new therapist, she brought up a particular mental illness that sounded like it could fit both of us really, but it felt like for me, okay, this makes sense. I get it. I was reading about it. I was researching, and I realized, yes, this makes sense. So my therapist and him both wanted me to see an individual therapist. And so I went to a new therapist who understood this mental illness better and spent some sessions with her. Now, this was really hard stuff to do, especially on my own, especially without the support of him and knowing that he was going off and dating somebody else, but I did it. I made the changes that I needed to make. And this was a really good decision because eventually this is what helped me to let go of the relationship and to let go of my ex, because working on this mental illness started to give me more confidence in myself. It helped me to be able to manage things like anxiety and not freak out so much, because panic is a natural feeling when anybody's leaving you, but I would feel panic to the extreme and I wouldn't be able to think straight. So learning to be able to manage the mental illness helped me to manage my anxiety and helped me to be able to have a better perspective on everything going on and to be able to handle it. Now, I knew that I couldn't just keep hoping and hoping and hoping for this to work. I had to start trying new things. So in order to gain more confidence and feel more independent, when I knew he was dating, I went out and started dating people too. But I would always let them know, right away, I'm still hoping that my ex is going to come back. And I would let them know the situation and let them know, I'm not committing to anything here. This is what it is. But I think that helped me a lot too, because that helped me realize that even though my ex was out dating, I could still go on and live a life without him, which I haven't lived a life without him for 6 years. So I started to remind myself of who is that person who I was before I met my ex? Who was that person who was dating people, who was confident, who had self-esteem, who was capable and willing to go out and have fun with people? I needed that person to come back. And so going out and having little mini dates and things and meeting people, that brought the confidence back. Now, here's the thing. It wasn't until I completely stopped talking to him and gave myself, maybe not completely, maybe I still said hi every now and then through text or something, but it wasn't until I made the decision that I was not going to communicate with him anymore and I was going to live my life that I started to see things from a new perspective. I finally started to get perspective because when I did finally meet him again, which was on my terms, I decided we would meet for lunch or dinner or whatever it was, I forget what we were calling it, I realized he was not the same person that I thought he was. I had been thinking a lot about the relationship and our dynamics and what was going on, and listening to what my friends were saying and reconsidering things. And now that I was meeting new people and seeing how other people talked and how other people interacted with each other, I realized he wasn't the great person that I thought he was, and he wasn't going to become the great person that I hoped he would be anytime soon, because he wasn't working on things the way that I was working on things. So working on the mental illness stuff, getting my self-esteem and my confidence back, meeting with new people, and feeling independent again, all of that was critical to letting go of that relationship. But the final thing that I really, really needed to do was to be able to see a future without him. Even if it was a small future, even if it was just the next day, I think getting out and doing things on my own and being independent helped me to see that I could live and be safe and have a positive future without him in my life. That's hard. It took me a really long time to get there, but I think that was the final key to me letting go of the relationship. Have you ever had a difficult time letting go of a relationship? What helped you? Let us know down below in the comments.